All right, so poker is fun, but it really just involves sitting in a chair for hours at a time. So I think it's important to get your blood pumping. So I want to do some exercises, as I say, up, down, left, right, A, B, up, down, left, right, A, B, start, select. All right, that's enough.
Welcome, everyone, to our very special video games episode. We're not just talking about poker as a game, as a card game you play with friends, but as a video game this time around, giving you three classic games, I suppose you could call them. I'm one of your hosts, East Coast Sam.
And I'm one of your hosts, Legend Ben on Poker Stars. And I've been a gamer my entire life. Sam has dabbled with a few games here and there for my influence and on his
Not a
own.
gamer.
Here and
Not
there.
a gamer.
I'm not saying you're a gamer. I'm saying if you played some games over the course of your life.
Sure.
And ironically, our original YouTube presence was in the form of a sort of half X play, half bizarre YouTube sketch comedy show called Does Disco Disapprove, where we actually reviewed video games. So we reviewed maybe like 7 or 8 games over like a year plus on that YouTube channel. You can still find that on nick2s.com, by the way. And I've always been intrigued by the idea of video game reviewing. And we kind of found a good opportunity here to kind of marry this podcast with that past interest of mine because poker video games is another subcategory of the poker world that really doesn't get much attention because of the omnipresent existence of online poker.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to put poker into a video game because most people play video games for stories and character arcs and obviously interactive worlds and things like that. So how do you put poker into a game and make it stand out from downloading Poker Stars online? And that was, something that I find very interesting when I'm thinking about these three games that we're about to review is what do you have to do to spice things up a little bit and change things up? And each game has its own approach to it. It's interesting to kind of break them down, but where does these games stand out? It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, and really you can divide these games into a couple of categories. One is taking an existing brand or poker player and kind of slap together a recreation of maybe some of that iteration of poker's greatest hits. I'll point to Poker Superstars Invitational for PC, for example. These games came out there was a couple of installments in this series. One kind of relating to each season of the Poker Superstars Invitational television show, where it pretty faithfully recreates the structure of that particular season of the show. So the one that we kind of grew up with on our old Windows XP back in the mid 2000s was for the game that correlated with the first season, where it simulated the league structure of that first season, where you'd have an 8-handed table, you'd play a couple of matches to accumulate chips for the final round of that section of the season, and then depending on your finish in that table, you would do that whole sequence again, and then sort of it goes A, B, C. You earn chips in A and B for C. How you do in C applies to G. Then you play D, E, F. How you do in D and E affect F, and then so your C and F chip stacks add to G, and then you play that, and that's how you determine your final rankings. That was the structure.
Did y'all get that? Did y'all follow what happened there? Yeah, I mean, we talked before in our review about how complicated the structure was and how players had to make certain decisions in order to maneuver their stacks and arrange through the tables and all that. And yeah, it's the same problem with this game. It's just a little too complicated. I understand they're trying to mimic the structure and again have the game stand out from its competitors, but it creates this very long, confusing experience for me.
Well, the one thing I appreciated in this particular game is that when you make a bet size or a raise size, you could actually click your chip stack and it would add that chip to the bet size. So you could really custom make your bet. There were no restrictions on how you would bet size when it was your turn. So that was kind of cool. And as the table goes on, your chip stack is literally changing with the chips you're winning. So you're seeing your chip stack shrink or increase or chipping up or coloring up your chip stack. So that was kind of cool because the other two games we're talking about don't really have a appropriate chip barometer graphic on the screen.
Right.
But I think what really the biggest factor in what makes a good poker video game or not is the AI. And when I say the AI, I don't just mean does their betting patterns make sense? I think, and also you want to see differentiating in play styles or bet sizing from a computerized opponent to one to another, because so often I've noticed that really they all just kind of play the same at the
Right.
table, and that makes a difference, because really it just means you're just kind of it's almost like you're playing 1v1 against 8 people, and it's not as dynamic at the table can be that you would see in real poker.
Yeah, I always felt the AIs just all blurred together, and that there was no difference between Antonio Esfandiari and Phil Hellmuth and whomever else happened to be there. So, that was very disappointing playing that.
Yeah, and for the most part, all of these poker video games, they would kind of have two main modes. There'd be like a single table quick play, like just hopping in, nothing complicated, like a sit and go, and then there'd be kind of the more expanded out mode, which in this case would be the Poker Superstars season mode, which is what it is. The problem when you have like 6 or 7 matches, like a season of the game, is that it kind of makes every match up until the last one pretty inconsequential.
Right.
Really, you can just kind of go on autopilot until you get to the last match, and then finally you can kind of take things maybe marginally more serious. I should clarify that this Poker Superstars game, the graphics really it's just bare bones PC graphics, in that you have like a name card with a picture of that player around the table, and then chip you get your 2 cards. Chips go around, bet, 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 blah, 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 and then there's no on-screen avatar or atmosphere to the game. It's a very basic, almost like some first-year college student in game design could probably just design this game's look. And again, this is a 20-year-old game, so I'm not saying it needs to look amazing, but pretty low budget. This is the kind of game that kind of retail for like $20 in like a Best Buy, or maybe like $15 on like some Shockwave macro flash player website in the mid 2000s on discount or something. So not exactly a huge investment, but if you ask me, probably is the weakest of the 3 games we're doing right here, if you had to ask me.
Yeah, I don't see why you just don't play Poker Stars for free or Party Poker for free, and you can actually play against people, and there's a little bit more of a sense of competition, and you can improve your skills more than with 8 AIs that are the exact same thing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder the goal of a poker video game. Is it for entertainment, or is it for improving your game?
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, if you picked up this game, you weren't trying to improve your game. You're just trying to have a quick, because the PC CD-ROM gaming was such a big thing in the 2000s. So
Right.
it just kind of fits into that zeitgeist of the gaming world at the time. In the mid 2000s, a lot of gaming websites were really big on breaking down each review into the graphics, of the sounds, the gameplay, how the length of the game, the presentation. And again, poker games kind of get like a pass in a lot of those categories, because really it's mostly just about the poker itself. In this case, it really kind of has one main mode, so either you get sick of it after maybe the 3rd or 4th time, or you don't. Graphics are pretty weak. The sound, I kind of like the soundtrack actually. It's only a few tracks in it, so it's not gonna light your ears on fire either way. But so a marginal thumbs down, and as a gamer who holds spending money on a game to a relatively higher standard than maybe the average Joe might. But it's a harmless little game if you ever see it like at some yard sale, or on eBay for like $2, and you just want to see a relative to the past. You won't be doing yourself too much harm.
Yeah, I mean it's not a harmful game by any means.
Oh.
It's not a terrible waste of time. It would be kind of funny to go to the main event and be like, okay, so how long have you been in the game? Oh, I've been in the game for 10 years. Oh, well, what have you been doing for 10 years? I've been playing Poker Superstars Invitational on Shockwave.com. That would just be really funny. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun little diversion. It's nothing more, nothing less.
You mentioned Shockwave, because there is a web browser version of season 2 or 3 floating out there for free.
Yeah.
It's very slow though. Like it
Yeah.
goes tick, next player, tick, next player, act, tick. Whereas in the version that we owned, you could literally hold the space bar down. It would just fast forward around to the next action, and it's like kind of a fast forward button of sorts. So maybe like 5 or 6 times faster than the browser version. But if you just want to taste of the bare bones gameplay loop and the feel and presentation of this series, you can experience it for free currently online. So that moves us over to the second game we'll be discussing. This is a game that was by the now sort of half defunct, half not defunct Telltale Games, called Poker Night at the Inventory. This game I dropped, I think it released somewhere around like 2010, so kind of in that sort of peak era for the Telltale Games company back then. And this was a very unique blend of poker and comedy that I really appreciated.
Yeah, it's a fun little game. I mean, it's again just a cash game, poker game. But what they do is they have Telltale Games characters in there, and they've recorded new lines with them, and there's banter amongst the characters as you're playing the game, which you can enable or disable to just focus on the poker if you want. And it's just a fun little, again, diversion to have.
Yeah, this game again, it kind of retailed in that similar kind of like $15 to $25 range, I believe, when it first came out, and it kind of fits into that Valve universe of production where there were some unlockables in the game that you could win for Team Fortress 2 cosmetics.
Right.
Each character had like a special item that they would in the little mini skit after I started every second go. They would ponying up their $10,000, but in the sort of script, they would not have the money on them, so they would have a special item that would count as their stake. And so if you were the one to knock them out, that's the kicker. Then you would win that unlockable right then and there, and it would all tie into your Steam account and go to Team Fortress 2 for your usage later on. So that added a little bit of a novelty kind of cool factor to the game. If you were big on TF2 back in those, or if you still are. And so this is a very basic Texas Hold'em. You had Sam from Sam and Max. I'm sorry, Max from Sam and Max. Excuse me, Strong Bad, from the Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people game tie-in. You had Tycho from Penny Arcade. You had the Heavy from Team Fortress 2. And then the narrator slash like sort of host, but not really host. I forget where he's from. Is he from like Monkey Island or something, Sam?
Yeah.
Monkey Island. So he kind of like would narrate, the player wins the hand. Max wins the hand. I love his accent for that.
Yeah, it's a great accent.
And so really, it's a very basic Texas Hold'em, blinds escalate, I think every orbit or so. And really, there was like a few adjustable difficulty settings for the game, so you could tailor make your experience. And there was some effort to have each player at the table play differently. Like Max would be more aggressive no matter what his cards were. Tycho would be, I think, a little bit more tight. Strong Bad would kind of play a mixture. So there, you would definitely, if you played enough hands, you would see the specifics to each player's game. So that was kind of nice as far as AI was concerned.
Yeah, it was nice. And there would also be little tells. Max might adjust his head a little bit differently. Strong Bad might do something a little bit differently with the way his eyes are that sort of indicate that maybe he's bluffing or has a strong hand or whatever. So they did put attention into it. But really, it is about the comedy and the dialogue, which, I'm not sure how many lines they recorded, but there was quite a lot of it before it started to repeat again amongst all four characters, and each of them has, there's some meta humor in there about video games, meta humor in there about each other's properties, and they, some of them are friendlier to each other than they are to others of them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and each character does have dialogue for different situations, for if they're losing, if they're winning, if they're heads up against you, if they're just busted, all these different permutations. It really kind of feels like you're at the table with these four sort of, fictional characters, and even though you can't respond back to them because you're just you're playing on the computer, it really lends itself to one of the more unique poker experiences out there, really.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun to just play, especially if you know these characters fairly well. Like we didn't, I knew Strong Bad very well from watching Homestar Runner over the years. Sam and Max played a little bit of. I got into Team Fortress 2 after we played Poker Night at the Inventory. But yeah, it was kind of nice, seeing these characters I'm familiar with just interacting with each other in this sort of unusual environment.
Yeah, and this game is kind of like almost delisted because Telltale Games went defunct until it got sort of revamped. So you might be hard pressed to find a copy of this game, but you can find YouTube compilations of just lots of the dialogue. There's some great lines. One of my favorites was when Strong Bad confuses Max for a Pokemon. that was just so amazing the first time I heard that. That was one of the biggest laughs I've ever had watching a video game.
Yeah, that was great.
And then also there is a way to turn off the dialogue if you just want to focus on the poker, or if you want to increase the chatter frequency. There's also options for that. And probably one of my favorite little small details was whenever you're in the middle of a dialogue scene and it's someone's turn to act, they might say my turn, or like they'll like interrupt the action with some sort of dialogue to say like, oh, I'm gonna do this bet here or something like that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So again, for me, I think it's a really fun game. It's for poker players. They might take offense to like the levity of the game, but if you don't take things too seriously, if you're like a big poker pro, you might kind of enjoy the novelty of this game. And if you're just a gamer or a fan of even just one of the franchises involved in this game, I think you're going to find something to enjoy. When you just to see a character you know bounce off of some other characters, because again, the chemistry there is really really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, there's like sort of 3D-ish graphics, not super realistic, but they're all kind of almost like copy and pasted into like the sort of 3D poker lounge area. So it's a simple little game. I don't think it'll press many graphic cards for a lot of computers, so it should run pretty smoothly on most computers. And this game did spawn a sequel called Poker Night 2 that I personally have never played, but I understand that they had a whole new roster of characters, including they had Sam instead of Max this time, although Max does make a cameo in that game, and they added PLO into that game. Cool. So there's a bit more variety there. So if you maybe ever see a double pack bundle, I recommend getting both games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that leads us into really kind of the piece de resistance. This is really kind of I alluded to in our last episode. This purchase of this 2005 World Series of Poker GameCube game really kind of was the impetus for this podcast episode being formed. I bought it for like $18 at a used game shop, and I played this game twice. Once with Sam, that was my first impression of the game, and I played it once on my own to kind of balance out the multiplayer party atmosphere with the single player. And so we really had an intriguing experience playing this game, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, Ben and I grew up playing the GameCube, so we're used to a lot of the graphics and the style of a GameCube game. And the question I was just asking going into is like, what is this going to be like? So as Ben mentioned, there is a sort of sit and go mode, and then there's a tournament which is called the career mode, which is really trying to emulate the WSOP, where there's a bunch of events. There's a main event equivalent, there's smaller events equivalent, and a lot of different games too. I mean, not just Texas Hold'em, but also Omaha High-Low, Stud High-Low, and Raz. So, and you can play from two tables in tournament to all the way to 512 tables. So that there's really a lot of options and opportunities for you to play different ways, as well as you can start a bunch of starting caches and all sorts of stuff. So they really went out in terms of the options that you have in terms of customizing your experience.
Yeah, a lot of games at this time are big on making your own avatar. A lot of sports games, this kind of in the sports genre mode, where you have like franchise, like Superstar and Madden or something like that, where you can make your own character and then have your own career, kind of in an atmosphere like a real player in that sport game would at the time. So for this, again, you mentioned that you can customize your own tournaments and make your own like fake tournament and play in it. You have the career mode, and then you just have like a quick table mode. So to really, we kind of did each mode, like one playthrough of each mode to kind of get a taste of how that would feel. So firstly, I did a quick tournament, a Raz tournament. And so I customized how many tables, the buy-in, the starting ante and limit sizes and stuff. So there's a fair amount of variety there. So if you want to tailor make, we asked Greg Raymer in the interview what would be his tailor-made tournament. If you want to make your own like style of tournament, you really can lock in on that. And so I played a tournament of Raz, and the first thing that jumps out at you is the pretty ridiculously bad 3D models for the human characters. So again, I didn't expect the GameCube from 05 to be a powerhouse of graphics, but just kind of the blocky, mushy, weird like Play-Doh like appearance of the players is a little off-putting. But the actual gameplay itself, Raz played like Raz. You get your cards, the action deals around. You can actually customize what seat you sit in if you want to have your eyes on the same part of the screen at all times. That was fine. The controls are pretty intuitive. So the A button is your go-to for all action, like you would for most GameCube games. But when it gets to your turn, you use the control stick of the D-pad, and you can decide fold, call, raise, all in, or whatever action you want to do. And then so you tap the direction of that action, the prompts are on the screen, and then you hit A. So there's no like it takes two inputs, so it minimizes the chance for a misclick like you might have playing online. So that was kind of nice. And so I played Raz, and I kind of ran like garbage. Like I just picked up no hands, and like obviously I knew the AI would be kind of wonky, but players are having just better boards than me face up. So I was like folding my way down to like 3 antes here and there. So, but it's just kind of fun to play along. Sam was watching as I was doing this, so it was kind of an enjoyable little experience. And then I busted, of course, because it's kind of a quick table. And then I turned the keys over to Sam for his turn.
Yeah, I mean, just a few things to note. I mean, the voice acting, because there's little voice actors just say lines throughout. Mostly just, I call, I fold, things like that. But there's also a little banter. The voice acting is really bad. I really don't like it. There's like stereotypical Southern accents, at call, things like that, just mixed in with a lot of stuff. Yeah, it just doesn't sound very good. There's also really generic music. The music just doesn't, it sounds like something out of Tilt. It just doesn't sound very good at all. Yeah, and in order to, get through the other actions, other players who are acting after you folded, you can press A. You don't hold down A, you have to press A over and over again like this in order to get through everybody, which is a little weird. I think you just hold down the button, but whatever. But one cool thing that the game does have is you can select the options button, and it'll let you see, if you're in a tournament, what the top stacks are like, where they're at, how many players are left, when the next limit increases. That's not on the screen as you're playing, so you can just hit, pause and then go see this, which is nice. But also there's a little ticker along the bottom that pops up, like a sports ticker or a news ticker on a news website or something, that lets you know when players are busting, what place they're in. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, so I mean, I decided to play just, Hold'em just to see what it was like. And, I ran a little bit better than Ben did, just a little bit. Another thing as well is that there's a couple of rooms that you can play your different poker game in. So Ben played his in room number 1. I played mine in room number 3. Only real difference was that my room looked a little bit greener than Ben's room did. It's like very dimly lit and kind of odd. They're trying to make things a little bit more visually interesting, but just still looks a little weird. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I was running okay. I was playing okay, maneuvering my stack. I busted out a player, but the game did not give me the player's chips, and the player stayed in the game. And yeah, the AI was just kind of weird. There was one player who shoved with 5-4. There was another player who I think I raised, and one player called with ace high, and another player called with king high. So the AI is just kind of wonky in places. Yeah, I eventually busted, and I think it was 4th place. And the player who should have been busted, because I busted him, actually wound up getting 2nd. So that was kind of annoying. But yeah, I mean, I had a decent enough time doing it. Another thing to note is that I was playing No Limit Texas Hold'em. It would only raise in increments of the blinds. So if it was 100, 200, I could only do 400, 600, 800 instead of 500 or 450 or whatever. Which, that's okay, I guess. But I would prefer to have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of where my raises and bet sizes are, especially with the AI being the way it is. It was fine enough to play at.
Yeah, so again, we made it a point to have us each play separately, and then we sort of tag teamed the main event together afterwards, because this is something I was really kind of excited for, a simulated main event experience. Because why spend $10,000 playing the main event when you can just spend $18 at your local GameStop equivalent and play in the main event by proxy? And so that was kind of cool, because it opens up with the graphic 2005 main events. So again, kind of cool. And then it cuts to probably the worst 3D depiction of a new television personality in history. It has this weird Lon McCarran, just does not look like Lon McCarran in the slightest. Like they got the hair color right. That was about all they got right. And then unfortunately, no Norman Chad. They had some just generic secondary host. and they would every day of the main event will begin with a shot of them talking about, oh, we're even closer to the final table, here we go, and the rookie over there is going to do this. And so as part of doing the main event, we were in career mode, obviously, and so we created our own avatar. And there's an old running joke when we had WarioWare for the GameCube. One of our, we were like, I was like probably 11 or 12 at the time, so still, pretty young. One of our friends made a multiplayer profile on the the GameCube version of WarioWare, and he put as his name FOCQU. So as a callback to that, that's what we named our character for our career mode experience.
Yeah, the customizable options for your characters are actually very surprising. There's like a dozen different shirts you can put your character in. There's different hairstyles. You can get different voice actors, all sorts of stuff. It's crazy how customizable it is. Again, none of it exactly looks good. I mean, we're talking mid 2000s GameCube game. We're not holding its feet to the fire too much. But it is crazy just how customizable things are. And then obviously you can name whatever you want, which is kind of nice.
And so the main event, you begin with a $10,000 starting stack. The blinds are 25 and 50. It feels very much like you're playing the main event from a gameplay standpoint. The blinds go up every 9 hands, which is really one orbit. So again, obviously faster than what it would be in real life. But again, you can't be playing 2 hours for one level on a video game for the main event. That wouldn't make sense. And again, it was just kind of fun to sit down and be like, okay, let's do it. So every level we would alternate who was playing for the most part, and we just kind of hang in there and see how far we can go. And I played a couple of main events after this, and a point I noted was that how long each day of the main event was not the same from playthrough to playthrough.
Really?
Yeah. So I first assumed it was maybe like every 5 levels, kind of like in real life, but no, I was wrong. It can vary. It can be only a couple levels sometimes for some of the later days.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the something that we just enjoyed seeing is that when someone busts, again, they stand up, they leave the table, and then the trucker says what place of finish. It's just kind of cool. Like that's just one of my favorite parts of this game was that little detail. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. And they also, how it works is players get knocked out of your tables, but they don't cycle in new players until you're down to about 4-handed or so. So that gives you, plenty of time to kind of just play with whoever's at your table and see people grow up in chips and grow down in chips. And yeah, the ticker, when players bust and in what place they get really is random. I mean, a player might bust 1 hand in 2000th place, and then 2 hands later, that player busts in like 1500th place. And then 2 hands later, another player busts and they bust in like 1460th place. Yeah. It's just kind of, it almost seems random when exactly the places are, but it is still kind of fun to see.
I would have to sort of check maybe with online, but my suspicion was that it sort of jumps ahead either every table merge or every level.
Mm-hmm.
I can't confirm for sure, but that was just my only 2 theories. So it did seem like sometimes there'd be 2 bust outs at our table, and there'd be back-to-back eliminations on the hierarchy. So yeah, that's possible. And so again, every level or so we would switch off. Check how many players are left. Just kind of cool to see. Oh yeah, and it's kind of funny. This main event we played in had 6,660 players, so it's actually a good over like about 1,000 more than what the 05 main event actually was when it happened in 05.
Right.
And smaller than what the 06 one was. So, and again, that 6,600 players kind of falls into that sort of like 2010s main event size. So it's just kind of ironic that that's what the fictional tournament turned out to be.
Yeah, so if you're going to be playing the main event this year, make sure to buy this game so you can practice and just get all your moves ready for the main event.
And so we played a little bit. We really were. I was pretty card dead for the most part. Usually I would just kind of fold my way to Sam's turn. But together with our tag team approach, we actually made it to day 2 with about 80,000 in chips. So again, if you were playing the main event, that's a pretty good day 1.
Yeah.
And, it cuts back to Lon and the other guy saying, "Oh, we're at day 2. But that rookie, you gotta watch out for him." They obviously can't say your name because there's no computer program for that, so they just refer to it as the rookie is like the default name for your character. And so we made it. We made it to the 1K and 2K level on day 2, and I believe it was my turn. I think we had like 25 big blinds. And went all in, and we got 5 outed on the river to bust in about the same spot of the tournament that Adam did 2 years ago. So it was kind of funny I think we had Ace King against I think it was like Queen Jack, and they hit like a 5-outer on the river or something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
And so, unfortunate to bust on day two in the main event, but what can you do? It was a fun little, goofing around, pass the controller around, GameCube party sort of experience. Obviously, it was only the two of us, but had there been, 3 or 4 of us, I think it could have been pretty fun just to play it like that.
I'm just envisioning like, a group of players like Phil Hellmuth and, like top-notch players playing this and what that would be like, and they each pass around the controller. That would just be so funny if like Poker Go could do a video of just like
Pretty
all
cool.
these top-notch players like Dan Smith and whatever just trying to play this. That would be funny.
Yeah, and again, I almost viewed this game from the lens of just it's a party video game, not a poker
Yeah.
video game, because the AI, I mean, when you're fast forwarding through any hand that you folded in, you're not really paying attention to how bad the AI is playing. So it kind of almost is like a smokescreen to that part of the
Yeah.
game. But if you after every hand, it shows you the showdown what they have, and there's like king high against queen high against 8 high, a full house against like ace king high and like 4-10 high. Like it's just some bizarre stuff. And so honestly, the approach I took was just kind of if you got big cards, play them because they are prone to having some of the garbage. But an observation I made of our playthrough was that I swear every time we had a pocket pair during this main event run, it would make a set like 3/4 of the time.
Yeah.
It's like it was unbelievable how that worked out.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, there were a lot of hands that we were folding that we would get 2 pair if we had played the hand. It was just very strange. I mean, again, small sample size here, but yeah, kind of odd, the AI.
Yeah, it was odd, but again, it was just kind of fun because there's a few real name pros intermixed in the field, and so Chris Ferguson, for example, was at our table on day two in this main event, for example. So that was just kind of the novelty of that was kind of cool, and you could check the leaderboard and see, oh yeah, look, Skyline wins up there in first place or something, or Chip Jet or something like that. So it's pretty cool just to kind of not think too deeply about it for a second and just kind of enjoy yourself for half an hour for 45 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then last night, in preparation for this review, I did play some more of a few more main events because I just wanted to see how I could do, and I really kind of had a similar experience as we had with our playthrough together. I made it to day 3 actually, and busted as a pretty short streak of like 5 big blinds in like 759th place, so a couple hundred spots shy of the money. And then I made it all the way to day 5 with a run here. It was funny because day 3 was only like 2 levels long. It was very strange, and so by virtue of making it to day 5, I actually made it through the bubble. But there was absolutely no bubble like content in that. It doesn't say, oh, the bubble is now burst, or this is hand for hand. Nothing like that happened like that. It was just the game kept going. Unless you were like pausing the game every hand and seeing how many players were left, you wouldn't have known how many players were still alive in the tournament. And it was funny. I was kind of playing so tight as if it was real because I was just so card dead for the majority. I mean, I probably lasted like almost 200 hands in this run, which really isn't that long if you think about it. But as far as lasting to day 5 of a tournament, but I was just sort of hanging in there, getting a little bit short, doubling up against some idiot calling me winning a flip here, or winning of like 2 jacks against ace-6 there. And so I made it to day 5, under 100 players left. I had the blinds were 8K and 16K. So again, I'm getting pretty into this at this point. I'm like, this is, let's see how far I can do, because apparently day 4 is the halfway point by virtue of the commentary by Lon in the game. So I assume it's like maybe 8 days, maybe 7 days on the final table. I'm not sure. So I have like 330K with the blinds 8 and 16K. I have 2 6s. One guy like raises, one guy calls the raise. I go all in. I get 2 callers. On the flop, there's like 2 overcards to 6s, of course. One guy bets, other guy folds. The guy who is still alive and then has 8-4. And the board, of course, is like king 8-5. So I bust in 81st place in the main event on day 5 for $89,100. Pretty cool. It kind of felt like a reasonable money amount given how far I'd made it, comparable to the main event nowadays. So that was pretty cool. And I proved to myself that I can make money in the main event, and that is all that matters, right, Sam?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so actually, you can in the career mode advance forward a year, so like the next year chronologically, so that you can just play the main event again. So you go to '06, '07, '08. So that was kind of cool to be like, oh yeah, you can play the next main event after that. And
Yeah.
it's a moment in history, so to speak. So again, uh, just honestly, if this game did not have the like fictional main event in it, I could not in any good faith recommend this game. But because there's a fake main event in it, I do think that mode is kind of a novelty factor that it's worth experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get this game cheap, less than $10, yeah. And again, just have fun, play it with a couple friends, have some pizza, have some beer, and just pass the controller around. Again, it would be Poker Go. Please do a let's play with like Dan Smith and Phil Hellmuth and Eric Pearson and whoever else is around. Just have them do this. Give them food, give them beer, whatever they want. I think it would just be really funny. Just seeing Phil just wrangle with the AI, just get frustrated. That'd be funny.
This game did spawn two sequels, one in 2006 and one in 2008. So I believe the '06 one wasn't released on Wii, so we do have a Wii. So we could, in theory, if I could ever find a copy, maybe play that one too to compare year to year. But uh, these games were all on PC, and then just kind of the contemporary consoles at that time. The GameCube, the Wii, the PS2. I think the Xbox is in there too. And so it's again, it's a World Series of Poker branded game, so that kind of adds a certain value to it versus just like Texas Hold'em for the Game Boy Advance, a generic game that has no brand affiliation. And again, these games got pretty atrocious reviews at the time from like if you look at Metacritic, for example, they were probably 50s, 60s, or whatnot. But again, I think poker kind of had a bad rap back in the mid 2000s still from non poker communities. So I think that probably is a part of it. There's no multiplayer like a formal multiplayer. You'd have to kind of just do kind of party style like we did to get more than one person in the action. But I think you could have a drinking game here. If you bust, you drink. If you don't, but you win the hand, everyone else drinks. Something funny like that. It could be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, as I mentioned, it's poker as a video game versus in the mid 2000s you have all these franchises underway. They're telling all these stories and character arcs and all that. So it's a lot of people who are professional video game critics who don't play poker in real life, they're going to find it a bit of a hard sell.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, even if you're a normal poker player, I mean, my recommendation is just play online because you'll actually make money online and you can actually improve your skills against real players. Yeah, this is just totally like a diversion, have some fun with friends type thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to laugh at a game or laugh with a game, if you want to laugh with a game, buy inventory. If you want to laugh at the game, buy this one because they're both very funny in specific ways that will relate to you as a gamer and as appreciation of good bad comedy.
Absolutely.
And so again, guys, that wraps up this discussion of poker video games. Again, I kind of grew up with one game. College played the other one. This one we obviously replayed recently. So these are all games from different points in my gaming career, so to speak. And so a very unique experience for each one. Obviously, if you've played any of these games growing up, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Maybe you have an entirely different story about the main event for the PS2 you played and you won the whole thing and you were so thrilled. But for us, again, we only dabbled a little bit just to get a taste of this game because really, I mean, I could imagine a gamer at the time getting a lot of mileage out of this game if they didn't have any other avenue of playing poker because there's a lot, you can play career mode. There's all the different games, buy-ins, trying to build up a bankroll. There's achievements. There's accomplishments in the game. It's not a game that I can see anyone playing 60, 100 plus hours playing, but a couple hours here and there just for the laughs is what I would say for the lasting appeal of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know if there's any other poker media you want us to review. If there's any other video games or movies or documentaries or web series, whatever it is, let us know and we'll get to it. And obviously, anybody who's interested in appearing on the show in any capacity, let us know and we'll set that up.
Yeah, and I think you guys can expect we actually located a few more poker documentaries on YouTube. So we will probably have that'll be our for real our final poker documentary special. But you never know, more can come out. We're not bound by those words. And again, we're only a couple of months away from the start of the 2023 Las Vegas World Series of Poker. So we'll be very excited to get into that news and action as we get closer. But until then, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care.